Hello, my name's host Eric. I'm the host of Talking with Famous People, and I'd like to begin tonight, as I've got a couple of early arrivals here. I'd like to begin tonight by talking a bit about parents' politics, which is about how your parents deal with political stuff and how you deal with political stuff. So, in my instance, I just got back a little while ago, or actually quite a while ago, but I took a nap afterwards from my parents' house. Where when I arrived, my mom was watching BBC News and was watching about the political conventions, and then my dad came home, and my mom and my dad started talking about politics with each other. I sort of listened, thought about how that stuff affected how I turned out, 'Cause that's the kind of thing I was exposed to my whole life, was my parents talking about politics, and my dad in particular talking about the mechanics of the American political engine. Like, well, they're gonna need a majority for that if they're gonna they need a super majority in the Senate, and ideally an executive in line with Republican ideology, and then they're going to try to stack the Supreme Court. That's their explicit stated goal. McConnell's talked about it. So that's the stuff my parents would talk to me about and talk to each other about, somewhat, occasionally, not all the time, but it's something they like to talk about. And it was interesting that, my dad still does the same thing he always did, which is he's pretty detached from his views, and he's more into describing the process than he is about stating positions. My mom, in contrast, has very strong and sharply defined positions about individual people. She hates this guy or loves that person or feels indifferent about that person. She absolutely despises Trump, and her most of her political commentary was, "Oh, I hate him. His wife plagiarized that speech." It's like, I can't stand that guy. It's like that kind of stuff, right? So that's an ISFJ kind of perspective on politics, and that's basically what my mom's politics have always been. It's been person oriented. She dislikes those who she believes have insufficient intellectualism or something. She doesn't like his not taking shit seriously, Trump, the way he kind of just goofs around and stuff. My dad says he's going to vote for Gary Johnson, and I said I'm going to vote for Gary Johnson, at which point my mom said, well, I trust you guys, I'm going to vote for Gary Johnson too. Because she doesn't like Hillary particularly, but she doesn't have particularly strong feelings about her. Whereas she can't stand Trump. Let's see what that says. Being born in Las Vegas, I had very liberal parents, which led me to not being raised with much values other than your rights. So I've become cultural affluent to balance the loss, I guess. I'm still at the beginning of my exploration and my perspective, but I have a lot better handle on my reality than I did when I was dependent on the state for education. Right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know what it means to have very liberal parents or how that differs. My parents were not authoritarian at all. They were quite responsive to my concerns and having my voice heard, and I mean, they were kind of ideal parents, perfect, You know, I got my benefactor personality type pair with my father, and my dual is my mother. But the point is about this particular topic is about the politics thing. So, uh, Bo says he had very liberal parents, and how does that affect your politics now? Do you think you're more liberal than me? Well, we don't know the answer to that, but um, let me ask if anybody else, who else is in here? Omni Ot Nahil, you want to talk about your politics any, or your parents' politics, I mean, specifically?
Um, I wasn't quite raised in politics. My father was focused more on his personal life.
He was what?
I he would tend to be more focused on personal life and pictures bigger than just like the United States, I suppose. But yeah,
Okay, so he didn't have a lot of he didn't have a lot of stated political opinions, or he didn't interface very much with the American political process, or what?
all he really had to say about the American political process generally is that he felt that it was in a state of decay. Uh, talk about like raising the flag half mast and upside down, that sort of thing, just as a general state of the government. So I'm not 100% sure if he really ascribed to the American political process.
I see. Well, that's odd or interesting. How do you think that's affected your own political perspectives? You're gonna vote for who? Vermin Supreme. I don't know who that is. I've never heard of this person before. Vermin Supreme, huh? Okay. Well, that seems like a fair vote. I'm sure that person can't possibly be worse than Trump and or Hillary. So, how heavily do you weight politics in general in your life, in your thoughts, stuff like that? Are you more or less apolitical in general, or do you spend a lot of time thinking about politics stuff? Okay. Well, from my perspective, to wrap up this issue of parental politics, I feel very grateful to have been raised in a family where my parents had political opinions, stated them, talked about what it meant to be in a democracy and what it meant to participate politically, and who actually, in fact, did some political stuff. So my mom, there was somebody Anderson. The candidate's name was Anderson. My mom liked him, and it was a presidential candidate, like a lefty candidate that my mom liked. She worked for his campaign back in the '80s sometime. Somebody who didn't win the primary for the Democratic Party. You know, it was during the primaries. And then another thing that happened with me politically is I got to watch my dad run for and lose for the school board election, trying to run for school board in Arcadia. So that was interesting. And I'll probably follow in his footsteps, you know. I plan to run for president though instead of school board. I mean, that's the thing. I feel as though the people who are participating in politics don't have anything like the kind of respect my father has for the political process. They don't deserve to participate in it. That's all I got to say about that.